Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. All right, well, welcome to this episode of The Bend. My name is Debbie Boone, and I am your host. And today, I am so excited to bring my good friend, Rebecca, to visit with you. Rebecca Rose is a CVT. I get to go. She said she prefers to think of herself as a vintage technician. Not long in the tooth, Rebecca, not that. But she has been in the profession 30 years, so we have that in common. She graduated from Colorado Mountain College in 1987 with her AAS in veterinary technology, and her career has certainly been quite diverse and taken her all over the continent. She spent 13 years working on the floor in a mixed animal practice in rural western Colorado as a CVT. Then she stepped into association management with no experience in management, and she survived it. She writes books, articles, assists veterinary teams in reaching their highest potential. She presents locally and nationally on the topics of practice management and team development. She sat on various veterinary industry councils. She brainstorms with leaders in organized medicine and has yet to see a glass ceiling in her career. Her passion lies in supporting, growing, and teaching veterinary teams to shatter the glass ceiling, design a career that fulfills all your personal and professional needs. In the past, she has received awards from the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association, honored to receive Veterinary Technician of the Year in 2002, Veterinary Industry Partner Award 2011, past president of the Colorado Association of Certified Veterinary Technicians, and the immediate past president of the National Association of Veterinary Technicians in America, NAVTA, from 2016. So she's pretty dang spiffy.
Spiffy. That's always the hardest part about a presentation, is standing there going through the bio.
Exactly. I've had people say, my bio is long, like yours. If you've been doing it a long time, your bio starts to get longer and longer. And I said, don't read all that. And they went, oh, are you kidding? Yeah. We have people who insist that we read it all. I went, well, that's just ignorant. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about whatever we can do to help you. So, and that's exactly why Rebecca and I are both here today on The Bend, because we both believe adamantly that veterinary medicine is a wonderful profession and that people should just be so happy in it. And by God, we're going to do something about keeping them happy. And that's our goal in life. And we've both been talking about that as long as we've been given a microphone, girl. Is that not correct? Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I remember the first time Sue Berryhill handed me a microphone. I was doing the keynote at a presentation. I think it was CBC, and I was ready. I was powered up. There was people coming in. I'm so excited. And she handed me that microphone. I was like, I have no idea what to do with this. Anyway, yeah. One of the many curveballs in our lives, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I can remember one of the first presentations that I gave, and I was just kind of hanging onto the podium thinking, I'm going to faint. I'm going to pass out right up here in front of these people. Oh my God, breathe, breathe, breathe. And of course, in life, learning to breathe is very important. And finally, I just kind of composed myself, said, I know this well, powered through, got through it. And now, you and I, either one, we don't even blink an eye. Somebody hand me a microphone and I go, yeah, let me have it. I'm ready.
Right. But we're talking about those curveballs in life. We've got small curveballs, which, represents a microphone. Everybody's like, no big deal. But then you've got those big curveballs. And I say, I'm probably like the queen of swinging at curveballs. because then you've got those tsunamis that you've got in your life. And when you've been on this earth as long as we have, and we're as creative and as risk taking, I mean, there's a certain level of risk taking in being an entrepreneur. Yeah, you got a lot of curveballs coming your way.
Exactly, exactly. And so that's the whole goal of this vodcast, is to show people the path. You know, we've been there, we've been through our wrinkles, our little humps, our major bumps, and how do we get there from where we started? So let's talk a little bit about where you started in life, because did you originally plan to go into veterinary medicine? Was that kind of your thought from the time you were a little kid?
Yeah, it was.
That's you?
Yeah. Long story short, so I will keep these all very short. We don't have enough time.
Yeah.
My stepfather is a veterinarian. When I was young, my mother was his receptionist assistant. This is in the early 1970s. I used to get off of the bus as a person, a little child in kindergarten, at the veterinary hospital. So I knew at a very young age that this was a career opportunity, not so much in as a veterinary technician, but yeah, I knew at a very young age I wanted to be a veterinary technician. There was a short period of time when I was in high school, when I was looking at schools and what I wanted to do. I had also considered being a midwife. So think back 1980s,
Oh, yeah.
early 80s, midwives were just coming onto the scene.
Mhm.
And I remember looking at and researching insurance for a midwife. All I could think of was, how in the world am I ever going to afford the insurance to be a midwife? The things that we think about, right?
Right.
So that was a very short glimpse. But beyond that, I have always wanted to be a veterinary technician,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. And for me, I always wanted to be in veterinary medicine. My goal was to be a veterinarian.
Mhm.
And then, you know, I changed my mind when I got in college, but I had all this business background and I still wanted to be in the profession. So I kind of found my perfect spot, being a manager, being in the profession, but not actually having to do the medicine part of it.
Mhm.
It really focused more toward the people part of it, but it's all people part, you know, and I think that's an illumination that people need when they go into the profession, because they think, oh, it's just about animals.
No, no,
No.
it's a science, or it's a service in people.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to deal with the people, but I just had a flashback too, as a young girl. Our house was right next to the CSU Research Center. And so I was always seeing the veterinarians and seeing how they were working the cattle. And I just always have been drawn to the medicine piece of it. And yes, even the people piece, as we know.
Yeah. So tell me about the path. I mean, you worked obviously in the practice. I think that you were raised in the practice.
Mhm,
Yeah. And then decided to go to school.
mhm. My veterinarians, even in the early 80s, hired credentialed veterinary technicians in rural Colorado. I started volunteering at Town and Country Animal Hospital when I was in high school. During my senior year, I became at a work study program. So I would go the first few hours of school and then I was at work. So, yes, and I've been there ever since. This has been
Great.
my goal. And I did, I knew that I wanted to become credentialed. That's always been another piece of this as well. So 30 some years, like you're talking 35 years probably now, it does make me long in the tooth.
Well, you know, there's a lot of knowledge stored in that 35 years. And experience is a great teacher.
Oh, yes.
You know, I feel, especially through this past year with COVID, I put a little video out when it first started that said, look, you know, I've been through this. I actually have lived through a pandemic in 1968. We've been there. We've already done this. It'll
Mhm.
be all right. You know, we survive, we survive.
There were a lot of things like that
Yeah,
for us this past year.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, I felt honestly with the racial
Mm.
unrest and all the rioting, I just really felt like I was going back to the 60s, because I do remember that as a child, the curfews at night, the National Guard coming out. One of the guys who worked for my family from the time he was 15 until the time he retired actually got shot during that time.
Mhm.
And so it's a time in my life that I remember really well. And like we live through it. We do live through it, but it is when you're living through it,
Mhm.
um, stressful, absolutely stressful. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, you know, when did life throw you your first curveball?
Well, are we talking personally or professionally?
We can talk about anything you want to.
Because I think that's the other part of this too, is that you really can't take the personal out of the professional. I mean, we're always talking about, park it at the door. Well, you can't do that. You really can't. So the curveballs, and I started writing all these down, was probably the first personal curveball was when I chose to divorce my children's dad. So that was my first divorce. Um, that was very difficult. I became a non-traditional mom. My children were young when I chose to do that. Then they moved away to Missouri. So then I was a non-traditional mom in that sense. My children lived 900 miles away. Um, so people see where we are now, but they have no idea the roads and the bumps and the tsunamis and the stress and the strain and the empathy that we can hold for so many people because of what we've been through.
Mhm,
You and I have both have had breast cancer.
mhm.
That was another big, hugely touching time in my life. So yes, we learn it, we experience it, we live it. We have those sorrowful times. We have grievances. I've lost my father. He was very much my biggest cheerleader. That was a big hit for me, and he was 72 years of age. He was relatively young. Matter of fact, he's always with me. So where's
Aw,
my dad?
hi, Dad.
Yeah, but there's so many things that people see us as where we are
Right.
now, but there's so much to who we are that yeah, we've all had those curveballs and we've all had those tsunamis. I call them tsunamis.
Yes.
And it's during those tsunamis is when we have our most personal growth and professional growth. And then I call the other time the surfing.
Yes. Yes.
So I
Well,
prefer to be surfing.
yeah, somebody asked me, I started reading in this reading group on Facebook, and it's called Bible Tribe. And Judy Busby, who is the inventor of toe grips, one of my favorite little old dog tools, it invited me to this, and we started reading. And somebody said, "Well, why does God give you so many trials and tribulations?" And I said, "Because you would never know the joy of the mountaintop. You have to put things into perspective, and if you didn't feel these valleys, if you didn't go through a hard time, you really couldn't appreciate with true gratitude where you are when you come out on the other side. And that gratitude is something I know you and I both firmly believe is so important, is to take that space to think about your blessings instead of the curses. And there's always going to be problems because that's life. Nobody ever said life was supposed to be easy. It's not. It is a trial and a tribulation until you get to the other side. And so it's how you handle those things. Do you handle them well? Do you react with kindness? Do other people,
How fast, how quickly do you rebound?
yeah, yeah.
Right?
How
That
do you bounce?
resilience piece.
Hmm. How
Yeah, I
do you,
feel like I'm a bouncer.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about being scared, because we briefly touched on, somebody handing us a microphone and like, oh my gosh, yeah. But there's so many other times in life that we are afraid, that we need to just, we power through it. How do you get through the times when you're afraid? So what was the scariest thing in your life, like that scary personal moment, scary veterinary moment, when you're like, whoa, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to manage to get through this?
Mhm. Oh, like I said, so many times. I think when I did first divorce my first husband, um, it was a months of what doesn't kill me today is going to make me stronger tomorrow, and getting through that. Just so many scary moments. More recently, let's talk about what even like in the last year, right? Because here
Yeah.
we are in this global pandemic.
Yes.
So if we rewind to November of 2019, I'm looking at 2020 going, hell yeah, this is going to be a bumper year. This is so exciting. The vision of 2020 was awesome. Highlighted speaker for the AVMA, and my conferences were booked, and I had some bookings with veterinary teams, and I was just like, yes, 5 or 6 years of doing my business, and I feel like I'm almost there.
Your stride, yeah.
Oh, it was so exciting. And then March 18th, pretty much unemployed.
Yep.
Bam, like pull the rug under everything we had just accomplished and all of those things that I just talked about. And it was like, holy flippin' fill in the blanks.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was in the middle of creating the Illuminating Veterinary Women's Retreat, which was bringing in women from all over the world, Canada, world.
Yeah.
Very exotic.
International.
And that was only a month away.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, so talk about switching gears right away. How are we going to move? I'm very action oriented. I'm very much a problem solver. I'm very strategic. People wouldn't see that about me. They think, oh my goodness, that woman reacts really fast. No, I'm strategic very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to morph that, and we pulled that off online. And then the AVMA goes away and all these other things go away. So I can't really say that I was as afraid. I was in logistics, tactical, I say morphing and flexing mode.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, and of course you and I, very similar. We are speakers. We are booked, the whole year, just about. We have a plan. And for me, doing private consultations, going in and out of clinics like I do, and all of a sudden, nobody wants you in their clinic. You don't want to go in their clinic. You don't want to get on an airplane. And you're thinking, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to manage this? But honestly, for me, 2020 was the busiest year I ever had as a consultant, because everything was moving fast. People needed a great deal of help manifesting these changes rapidly, helping their clinic, their teams move through it, because it was very, very stressful, and coming up with completely new protocols, because everything would change and you'd get it, and then it would change again and you would get it and it would change again. And everybody's just like fried, just fried. So, there was, for me, and then the things that were supposed to happen for you and I, we were both AVMA speakers, and all those things pushed. It was like a snow plow pushed every bit of the work that we had into October and November. And you have other work that you had lined up, and you're like snow plowed, and you're like, how am I going to get all this done? My husband looked at me and went, are you ever going to come out of your office? I went, I can't. I'm so busy. I can't do this. And then adjusting to that, making sure that you are looking at it, like you said, strategically and long term. What work can I take? What work do I need to not take? And say, I just don't have the bandwidth. And this is probably one of the first years that I looked at people and said, no, I can't. I cannot do this. I can't do another thing. And it wouldn't be fair to take the work. And
I remember when a veterinary hospital, I can't remember exactly when we opened up again, but I was able to go into a few veterinary hospitals, and I was just like, oh, finally I'm back with my peeps. I mean, believe it or not, I'm an extrovert. And so I need
no.
Right. But that, to be in my bubble all the time is stressful in of itself. That's a bit of a curveball.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the introverts were probably coasting a little bit more than we were, because we do like people. We feed off the energy of other people. And the introverts are like, this is actually pretty good. I'm kind of liking not having the clients in the building, and things are pretty calm, and they're just kind of staying back in the treatment room and doing their thing. But let's talk about like decision making, because you did say I'm a strategic thinker. I'm planning ahead all the time. When things throw me curveballs, what is your process for thinking about like the next step or getting yourself out of whatever this hole
Mhm.
happens, the tsunami. How do you swim out of
Tsunami.
the tsunami? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the tsunami. Um, I'm very visual, so I create a vision, and so for me to see something is that big picture, right? And then working backwards from that. Um, I didn't realize that on my strengths finders until I did one. I'm was strategy is my highest score. That is my strength.
Ah.
And I had no idea. I didn't see myself as a strategic person. But then when I look back at how did I even work and perform as a veterinary technician, I was putting together the plans. I wanted to train. I wanted to look at help people support each other. I wanted to make sure that we were efficient in the surgery room. That's been a core of mine. So for me to look at something and rapid fire, know those 28 steps to get me here, just to get to that, I can do fast.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I would immediately have thought that because I've worked with you. You know, we did a consultation
mhm,
together, and you, your mind works on a plane that sees from beginning to end and
mhm,
all the points in between. And I think that is extremely helpful, obviously, if you are a technician, because technicians run the practice in the back. I mean, they keep the traffic flow, they know what's going on with the animals. So if you're a good veterinary technician who can see that big picture and you're looking at the whole treatment room and in the back, you got eyes in the back of your head, right?
mhm,
Then creating these plans, these strategies for going forward is a natural a progression in
mhm,
your career of how to do these things, and being a good trainer, provided you have the patience for it, but being a good leader still,
mhm,
because that strategic plan is how any business moves forward, and how any human moves forward is have a goal, set a goal.
mhm,
Um, I had a conversation with two practice owners, and one of them is very goal oriented, and the other one is just kind of, do it day to day. And the one who's goal oriented said, "My whole life, I've set strategic goals. Like, I need to know what the long term goal is here 10 years
mhm.
from now." And I said, "You're exactly right. This is something that needs to happen."
You
Yeah.
can't see my whiteboard, but there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
I got, yeah, it's all right there. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's really funny. Sometimes you get thrown into things, right? And so for me, my strategic plan was always to move up into bigger and bigger hospitals and manage. So the last hospital I was in was 11 veterinarians, and I was the chief operating officer. But then when I got laid off in 2008, the strategic plan has to change. So there's the curveball, but I still always saw myself kind of going into the future and maybe being a consultant and maybe speaking in front of a crowd. And even though I never formally wrote it down, which I know is something that you believe, for strongly in, and I agree with you, but I'm so slack about it, I don't do it. I'm confessing here, but still in the back of your mind, if you set a goal, it's really funny how your mind works in the universe.
Subconsciously and consciously,
Yes,
it's
to get
both.
you there, to get you there.
Mhm,
And I remember so well in 2000 going to NAVC. My husband actually went with me because I remember, because we had a snowstorm that was 18 inches where I live, and that never happened. So it was just, burned into my brain. And seeing someone speak at the front of the room going, I think I might like to do that one day, and never thought about it again. And
mhm.
then all of a sudden, here we are, and speaking in front of all kinds of crowds. So yeah, you never know. Now you uh, really kind of morphed your career because you now have a coaching business. You're now a certified coach.
Career coach, yeah.
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 And I think you were always doing it. And I think
Mhm.
you and I both do it, but you decided to get the creds. And so good for you to do it formally. And then that sort of changed the trajectory of Catalyst
Mhm.
because,
It did.
yeah, how did
Oh,
you kind of change that?
yeah. So here's the other curveball, right? Again, that vision. So when I originally created Catalyst, it was Catalyst Veterinary Practice Consultants. maybe 7 years ago,
Yep.
that time. But what I found is I had this idea, and you were part of this too, is let's put together veterinary technician specialists, because there's wonderful, brilliant, amazing people in that sphere, and provide in-hospital training to veterinary teams in their hospitals by technician specialists in anesthesia and pain management and laboratory and dental procedures and fill in the blank. But what I found, and I put that together and I was so very excited, but what I found is when I would reach out to those managers said, Rebecca, that is fantastic. Unfortunately, we're churning and burning through so many team members. I can't see the ROI
Mm-hmm.
in that. So, uh,
Yeah.
that's the first morphing of Catalyst, right? So I remember reaching out to my technician specialist and going, God, we're not going to give up on this. Now, maybe we will resurrect it in the future, but right now there's a different need. We have a different need from our teams. So that's when we started doing the coaching piece of it. And I'll pull up my book because it's right here. But so when I put together, the career coaches for veterinary technicians, when I decided to become a career coach, it was like, here's your requirements. Boom, 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 write a book, put together all of these things, do all these things. And like, boom, I'm a career coach.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Obviously I'd been doing it and doing it to a certain degree, but it felt really good to get a certification in it.
Right. Well, I love the fact that you did the career book, because I don't think a lot of people realize that it's there, that it's a resource for them. So we definitely want to put the link in to the information on the Bend, because I'm getting a lot of feedback from people who feel they're stuck. And that all they can do is work in an animal hospital. All they can do is, medications and care, and they're tired. Maybe they've aged into where their body is going, girl, you need to get off the floor. But there's other things that they can do, and you're proof positive that that's true. But in your book, what other things would you, just like off the top of your head, give me 5 career choices for veterinary technicians?
Well, I want people to stay happy, healthier, and longer within the veterinary hospital. So let's talk first about some of the things that they can do within the veterinary hospital. Everybody thinks, well, my option is management. Well, if you choose to, yeah, that's a great, we both moved into management. We were managers. But follow what it is you like to do and bring more of that joy into your day. If you get charged by emergency critical care, make that a part. If you do teach and there's a teacher in you, I'm very much a teacher. Become that trainer within your team. Go to and identify what it is you do want and do want to grow, and how, and then talk with your veterinary owner or your practice manager on how can I bring more of this into my day, and how can that better serve our pets and the serve the people and the pets. How can that serve me, and then how can that impact the veterinary hospital? Because when you've got all of that lined out, you've got a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
So many things you can do within the veterinary hospital. Oh, that's another 2-hour presentation,
Exactly.
right?
I mean, the first one that popped into my head is rehab, because that is a completely technician driven opportunity to do cold laser therapy, to just to have the balance boards in there, to have to just manage those pets through rehab. And in our hospital, my practice owner did a lot of orthopedic surgery, and so the technicians were in charge of swimming the little wiener dogs with their bad backs, and we actually looked into creating kind of the obstacle course there. But those are definitely things that are technician driven.
And surgeries, I loved surgeries. I loved a day when we had 6 surgeries, and the doctor would walk in, he said, what do we got today? I'm like, we got this, and this is how we're doing it, and this is the the proactive piece of surgery. End of life care. Granted, we have a number of opportunities for veterinarians to have home hospice and all of that, but I was very much into end of life care, especially when there was a family attached to that, even with small children. People knew within even Town and Country Animal Hospital, when that case was coming to them, they turfed it to Rebecca, because I did feel it was important for us to have that as a good end of life experience for that pet and for that family, especially if there was young children.
Yeah.
I know that sounds, I was very much into that.
I think if people don't understand, it is one of the most important things we do.
Mhm.
And if we do not handle it well, there is such anxiety from the pet owner and disappointment. And I mean, they will almost forgive you anything but doing a euthanasia poorly and handling it poorly. And I remember when I first walked into my last practice, watching a pet owner, two of them, following one of the kennel assistants. She was carrying a box of Katie cat food, an empty box with a body wrapped in a black garbage bag. And this was going through our lobby,
Mm.
and the client's crying. And I was horrified,
Oh,
horrified.
uh,
And I asked one of the lead receptionists, what is happening here? And she said, oh, well, they didn't bring their own container. So this is all we have. And I went, never again will this
mm-mm,
happen. And so,
mm-mm.
starting immediately coaching how to manage euthanasia. Well, and this is an emergency clinic. So how many times do you have to do euthanasia in emergency?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. Home health care too for hospice care is certainly something that I've seen technicians embrace. In fact, later on today, I'm going to interview Serena Pulaski, who
Mhm.
is a technician who started her own healthcare business, helping animals in the home, and
Mhm.
they're very successful at that. So I think that's
Yeah.
a career move. But again, you've got to teach yourself how to be a business person.
Yeah, but there's so much that we can do within the veterinary hospital. A couple other things that came to mind right away is dental care,
Yes.
opportunities within that, but but fully defining what it is you like, what it is that brings you the greatest joy, and then going to your practice manager and saying, I want to do more of this,
Right.
right? So
Right.
things with beyond veterinary hospitals. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
um, Teaching within brick and mortar schools as a veterinary technician program, or even at universities, teaching is a great opportunity. Writing, blogging, presenting, consulting, coaching, working as a field representative within an industry partner company. Again, I wrote the book on it, so I could literally
Yeah.
physically talk on this for hours.
Yes. But I think it really is important that we get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And this is something that, you and I, we talk a lot about it, we write a lot about it, but people tend to just throw up their hands and go, I can't do anything about it. I'm stuck here. And a lot of this is learned helplessness from being in situations where maybe there's a toxic environment there, or they're bullied,
Mhm.
and they just don't think that they can do it. When you and I look at it and go, oh my God, there's so many people desperate for your help.
Yeah,
Why
and you're
you-
talented and you're gifted
Yes,
and you have an immense amount of opportunities ahead of you.
yes,
Let's just take your blinders off
yeah,
through networking.
exactly,
Take your
exactly,
blinders off. Let's reach out a little bit and be like, oh, I can't network. I'm like, well, then you just sealed the coffin.
right, right. It is all about, and people are willing to help you. And I think sometimes, my very first blog was with David Pinkley, and David is a LinkedIn expert, networking expert, recruiter. And he said people kind of think of networking as like used car salesman, glad handing, it's all about you. Networking is never about you. Networking is how can I help you, that other person? And then, through the magic, it comes back because people want to help you because you are someone who helps others. And you don't do it to get something in return. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
So I need to come up with my next veterinary practice news article because I have a column, and you just reminded me that I do have an article of that same topic, and I wrote it a long time ago, but it needs to be resurrected, and that will be my next
Yep.
VP article.
I'm glad to inspire you, Rebecca.
Yes, this is
Or just,
exactly how it works, right?
yes, it does. It does. It absolutely does. Let's talk about
Like,
some failures and mistakes. There you go. Let's talk about some failures and mistakes, because I think that helping, showing your warts a little bit. I've always believed, if you screw up, confess it. And a lot of people who are in positions of, I don't want to say authority, but people know who you are. People know who I am. And they tend to think, oh gosh, they just know everything. They just, they get it right all the time. But I think confessing your sins is a helpful thing, because it makes people understand that mistakes are made and mistakes are okay. This is really how we learn. I laugh when I teach. I ask people, how many of you, when you were a child, were told by your parents not to stick your finger in an electrical outlet? Well, 100%. And how many of you did it anyway? Well, almost 100%.
oh yeah,
Did it again? No, nobody did, right? Except maybe 1 or 2%. You're like, really? Why would you do that? So,
and I'm definitely one of those people, like, don't tell me what I can't do.
yeah, I'm gonna go try it. I'm gonna go do it. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, about like some things that you tried that just didn't work, and you were like, okay, well, when is it time to give it up, I guess, is the question.
Well, I'm not gonna have to come back to when I created Catalyst the first time. I mean, and then I renamed it. But I had to go through a grieving process, trying to put, the square peg into a round hole, saying our community just is not ready for that yet. Not the first time that's happened, but realizing, okay, that's not working. You can't force that. I think that might be the thing, is I really don't think there's such a thing as a mistake, to be perfectly honest. We all have learning lessons. I definitely approach my life from lesson learned. Chances are I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I'll learn how to do it better. I learned what the goofs were, right? I'll learn what the goofs are, and I won't do that again. Because really, I mean, if you think about it, you, me, Gwen, we really had this illuminating retreat for women planned, what was it, 10 years ago?
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And we had meetings. I had flown to Denver. And then it was, the timing was early, because now we look at it and we go, look at what we were trying to get across. And now everybody's kind of on the bandwagon and sees where we saw that pain, that we were trying to help and trying to resolve.
The Illuminating Retreat is very much about what I just wrote about. So I just wrote a blog on self-love. So the Illuminating Retreat is illuminating all of our talents within us as veterinary professional women, and supporting each other in that, because there's more support than there is pushback.
Yeah.
All the time in our world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are always willing to help you. And the thing is, we have to be willing to ask. And there's where I think is the disconnect, because people who are perfectionist, professional, they've had lots of successes in their life where they were sort of in charge of that. But then when it's time to reach out and say, you know what, I need some help with this, they suffer in silence, hoping that somebody might notice. But that doesn't work. You've got to ask. You've got to ask for what you need.
Well, again, it comes back to that strategic point out here. I just had an idea in a nonprofit. So you know what? I am not the nonprofit guru. I got a lot of experience in association management, being a leader within nonprofits, that kind of thing. But I went straight to Ralph and Adrian.
Yeah. You got to know people. Yeah. You got to know people who can do these things.
They convinced me not to do it.
Well, they saved you a mistake. The other good thing about networking is we learn from other people's mistakes. And when we say we have this brainchild and we go, no, you know what, we did it. We tried to do it. It's not time. People are not ready for it. It's not going to, it's not going to work. And here's all the things you haven't thought about. And you go, oh, I've never thought about all those things. You're exactly right. Let's not go there. So let's talk a little bit about networking, because obviously you and I, we are extroverts, and we do know, I think if I don't know them, you do, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So, who was instrumental in helping you succeed in multiple times in your career
Mhm.
through the network?
Mhm. So I'm going to go back to Town and Country Animal Hospital. My veterinarian owners were all leaders within the veterinary community, even in the 80s and 90s. So they were leaders within the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. They helped me see the advantages of being a part of your medical association, technician association. Um, Dr. Schick, bless his heart, I think he hired me 5 different times. Not that he fired me those different times, it was just that he knew for me, Rebecca and Becky, they needed to go out and do something and then came back and then had to go out and do something and came back. So I remember being in a surgical suite with him, and I told Dr. Schick, I was like, I want to become a leader and a driver within the Technician Association. He was a past president of the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. I'm pretty sure at the time he was even the president of the state board. So the leadership was very strong within our community of veterinary technicians and veterinarians. So it was through their leading through that example, I saw how that worked.
Mhm.
And then I even told him about how Dr. Schick, I'm going to apply for the technician assistant or the veterinary technician association administrator job. And it was also for the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. And so that was like the 4th time I left, and then I came back. But the point is, networking, regardless of the fear that you have in it, I still walk into rooms thinking, who am I going to meet? How is this going to go? Who's going to be there? I mean, we all do that, right? It's just, that's a part of, but what we do is we push down that fear and excitement, and we step into it with our grace and understanding that there's magic here.
Yes. Yes.
There's complete magic here.
And sometimes people will say, well, I don't know what to say, you know, or they're intimidated. And I think about the first time, my very first vet partners meeting. So all these years I had been reading articles written by Karen Gavsner, Karen Felstead, you know, Jim Wilson. And all of a sudden here I am walking into a room and they're all there. All
Mhm.
of them are there. And
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my God, you know, these are like the rock stars of veterinary
Yeah.
practice management, and I'm in a room with them. And what
Yeah.
am I going to say? So you just ask them about them and listen, because
Mhm.
people will give you, you know, a lot of information, and they're happy to talk about themselves and just like you and I and our journey, how we got there. So you don't really have to be a great conversationalist. You just have to be a good listener.
Good listener. People don't realize that it's the listening. I'm going to jump on a story about Dr. Wilson. What a wonderful, wonderful
Oh,
man.
yes.
Oh, and again, I'm a veterinary technician coming into these lobbies, coming into these socials, all of that. Granted, I've been very gregarious and social my whole life. But Dr. Jim Wilson was at the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. He was giving our big ideas conversation. And afterwards, we're at that social setting, having our wine and being around those little tables. And there he is in his sweetness. Oh my goodness, just a lovely, lovely man. And he asked, who am I? I'm a veterinary technician. And like the week before, living in rural Colorado in a small little community, I was like, I'm ready to go corporate. I mean, I really did. I was like, I I'm doing all this research. My book wasn't there yet, but I was just like, there's there's something in me. There was something in me brewing to be corporate. And Dr. Wilson says, VPI is hiring technicians. I applied. Once again, I knew nothing really about what I was doing, which comes to back to this the quote that I'm going to give everybody at the end. Just do it. So shortly thereafter, I was emailing Dr. Carol McConnell. They flew me into Los Angeles for an interview. And within probably 4 weeks period of time, I had a corporate job at Veterinary Pet Insurance as one of their first field educators. And I worked for them in different roles from 2004 until 2014 from a social event.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. These opportunities happen all the time if you are just having conversations with people. And, and I know I've certainly connected people that I thought would work well together. And, and, we love putting pieces of the puzzle together. We love making connections with people and having those. I kind of look at people like tools in your tool belt, and I tell clients when they engage me for consultancy, I said, look, I have some pretty mad skills in some areas of veterinary medicine, but there's areas that I do not have the skills, but I know rock stars. I know.
I promise I will not have all the answers, but
Right.
I will resource us to the
Yes,
answers.
I know. In fact, this morning I had a conversation with one of my new clients, and he said, I just really appreciate the fact that you pull in stuff from all over the place to share with me. And I went, this is what I do. I'm like the hub of information. I don't have to be all the information or build all the information. I am the hub for you. And so I have, I hoard stuff. I hoard ridiculous amounts of information. If you can see behind me, you would see there's like 45 bookshelves and books full of stuff. But I love doing that. I love having those connections and saying, oh, you need to go and, talk to Rebecca if you want coaching. That's not me, but here she is. And this would be a perfect fit for you. So let's, I know you and I, we really could spend a whole lot of time talking to the two extroverts together. And one day we'll have a conference and we can go out and hang out again and we'll have some fun. But tell me what advice you would give someone who's just really deciding on making a move in their career.
Most people can fully define their don't want list. That's easy. 100 things. I don't want this. That I would encourage them to flip all of those don't wants into a do want list, which is difficult. People they're not focused on that. They live in that negativity brain, that negativity bias, but fully describe for everything you do want: the schedule, the money, the support, the team, the culture, the people that you dine with for lunch. You get a lunch.
Yeah, you get a lunch and you get to pee. Those
Yes.
are kind of asks that are not unreasonable ask.
No, and I was just with a veterinarian. I do coaching like that all the time, and it takes a while to flip that don't want to a do want.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you finally do figure out what it is you want, then we can create that. We will find it.
Yeah.
People are like, we're not going to find that. I'm like, well, hell yeah, we will. We're going to manifest it. And even for this one veterinarian, I said, okay, open up now your server and let's look. Plug in the places that are within that 45-minute radius or shorter. I suggested 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we're going to find you what you want. And we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, going back to if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. You have to ask what you want. You have to tell people what you want coming in. And if it doesn't fit, then that's okay. I mean, there's no harm, no foul, right? I mean, I used to have people who would say, well, I don't want to work on the weekends. And I'm sorry. Then that's a requirement of this job. Mm-hmm. And I know you have great skills, but that's not fair to all the other people on the team who do work weekends. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to have to pass. And that's all right. But there might be somebody out there who wants and is willing to accommodate that. It just, I didn't feel like it was fair for my group. And plus it was, like every other weekend. So final words of wisdom. And I know you have a quote because you told me you did. So
yes,
final words of wisdom and quote.
Okay. And I have another picture too, but my daughter, so we were talking about other things about people that help and support you. My daughter makes all of my beautiful visual creations and she is just magnificent at it. So she created this, and I have another one, but I'll tell you what it says, but this is beautiful. And it says, to wait for the perfect circumstance will be detrimental to achieving your goals. And it comes back to that piece about the illusion of perfection, right? That doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't.
And so just like I've told you 4 or 5 times today, I didn't know how to do it. I had no association management. I didn't know how to work for a corporate Fortune big company. How many technicians go to school to start their own business, right? You just friggin' do it.
Exactly.
You take away that fear, know that there are no perfect circumstances, and create what it is you want.
Yeah. Sometimes good is good enough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes good is good enough because perfection can gridlock you
Yeah.
into inactivity,
Mm-hmm.
action. Just, do it and figure it out as you go. And I think you and I both are examples of doing that,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the first time we talked together about Catalyst, we just went to lunch together and we started just kind of spitballing, like, what if you had this group and like all these like great superstar people were in this group and you could bring it all into a veterinary hospital and then everything that they needed would be within this hub. And that
Yeah.
was kind of our lunch discussion.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
At the AVMA here in Denver.
Exactly right. Exactly. Across from that blue bull at the convention center. I
Yep.
remember it really well. And and so it sort of pans out, but it sort of doesn't. But it's still a
It's
little bit.
not gone away. In my world, I hold on loosely to goals and those kinds of things. I'm like, well, that's just on the back burner.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
come forward again when it's time.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And we'll, one day we'll get to the point where we go, remember that idea we had? That idea was great. And it'll manifest, but maybe in a different way than we thought that it
Mm-hmm.
was going to, because maybe it'll just be virtual,
Oh yeah.
because virtual has certainly helped us survive this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about, what if this had happened just 10 years earlier? We would not have had the technology to
No.
do what we have done this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you everything is a blessing and a curse. So
Mm-hmm.
this year to me has fast tracked technology in veterinary medicine. We
Mm-hmm.
have learned to use talk to text and dictation and Zoom and Weave telephones and
Mm-hmm.
apps and all the technologies that are out, telemedicine, for those who've embraced that. There is so much that got compressed, 10 years, I think, of time into this last year, which is a very good thing, because it's going to make us even more competitive going forward, able to serve our clients, able to serve our patients so much.
There are more pets and
Serve,
more people. There is no doubt.
no, absolutely,
No doubt.
without killing ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the other component to it, because we keep trying to serve more and serve more, but there are physical limitations to what a person can do unless they leverage.
And I'm talking with teams right now about caseload. Let's really truly define who you are, who you serve, because there's all different kinds of pillars and silos right now that we can work within. And I think right now, so here's another ending tip, because then we got to stop, right? We're almost at an hour.
Eventually we'll have to stop, yeah.
I feel because of the global pandemic and all of the other things that we experienced in 2020, each veterinary team, it's time to evaluate your values, vision, and mission. Personally, we've all had internal changes, right? And then as a team, together, doing that together, and then create that around your kaleidoscope of colors.
Mhm.
Who are your team? What do you value as a team? What is the vision as a team? And what is the mission of your hospital? So that's my last.
That's your last.
My last.
The really last. Well, Rebecca, as always, it is a pleasure to talk to you. We just randomly will call each other every now and then. And I was thinking about it when we were talking about it, because all our phone calls ended with, I love you. And I do love you. You are my good friend. And so we will put information about your company, about how to reach out to you, and definitely link to how they can buy that book on careers.
Yeah.
And anything else that you would like for us to share with the public, we'll gladly tag into the description of this podcast. So thank you a million times, my soul sister. And we will talk again soon. Thank you to the audience for joining us again today on The Bend. We hope you are inspired. And we are both here anytime you need us please reach out to either Rebecca or myself, and we would love to help you with your veterinary career.